And it's Ken Kraetzer for Sons of the American Legion Radio, another edition of our Sons of the American Legion Army football huddle. It's Tulane week, and on Saturday, Army will be in New Orleans, Louisiana to take on Tulane, the Green Wave. Army goes in 6-1, ranked number 25 in the country in the coaches poll, and they will face Tulane, 4-4 on the season, coming off of 2 wins in the last couple of weeks. They've actually played 5 games in a row. Army has had 2 weekends off, so kind of a contrast there. I want to welcome everybody. We've got Richard Miller in Florida. Hey, Richard.
Hi, Ken.
And we've got Sam Houston in the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama.
Hi, Ken. Beat Navy.
And we've got Jack McGuirk from our Sons of the American Legion Monday WVOX team. And Jack is in Pelham, New York. Good to see everyone.
Good to see you.
I think before we have Richard start, I think the big developments for Army, just the cancellation of the Air Force game last week. There was a bit of going back and forth between the 2 academies. Head coach Jeff Monken on his radio show, and then also on my interview with him, really was disappointed that the game was not able to be played. He thought Air Force had enough players to play, and that he said they tried everything. They even offered to take the Army team out to Colorado and play, but to no avail. Air Force did cancel their game this upcoming week against Wyoming, so it is a serious COVID situation there. Sam, what was your thought? We all heard Coach Monken. He was broadcasted coast to coast, and but still they're hoping to get the game played in December.
Well, I hope that they do get the game rescheduled. It's critical to the Commander-in-Chief trophy. It's extreme disappointment that the game was suspended on such short notice as it was. I agree with Coach Monken and his animated response directed towards Air Force for the events that took place. And my personal opinion is that if Air Force is unable or unwilling to reschedule the game, they should forfeit. And as a caveat, I'll just add to what we've discussed before with regards to rescheduling the game, in regards to the situation that Air Force put themselves in this year, in the fact that they allowed almost 30 players or more from their team to turn back this semester, thinking that they weren't going to have a schedule at all other than Army and Navy. Then Mountain West rescheduled, and they found themselves flat-footed without 30 of their best players, especially on defense. And so they have a couple of COVID cases come down in addition to the injuries they've sustained, and they're suddenly shorthanded at several critical positions. I share what seems to be Coach Monken's opinion that that's the real reason that they suspended in the first place. So where I'm going with that is that if the game does get rescheduled and not before the new year, and it has to be scheduled for January or after, then the caveat to this needs to be that the rosters must be frozen. It has to be the 2020 team versus the 2020 team, and those turnbacks can sit on the bleachers and watch in their Air Force civilian corporate uniforms that they wear out at the Air Force Academy and watch.
Okay, and I guess there's a question on rescheduling. For doing it the week before the Navy game. Army's open, but it's exam week, I understand, at West Point, and then there's potential of doing it the week after, but the Corps of Cadets would probably have left to go home by that point.
Well, I think with regards to the football team and any other Corps Squad athletes, I believe they would probably be willing to accommodate continuing to prepare for the game, given that their season is continuing and they're playing a critical game. They certainly have to come back to organized practices to get ready for the bowl game, which falls right in the middle of the Christmas break, Christmas leave for the cadets. So I don't really see where that would be an issue, given the fact that they already have part of their Christmas leave taken up by football preparation, and number two, it being that it would be to play Air Force Academy for the Commander-in-Chief trophy, because we know we're going to beat Navy. I'm sure they'd be willing to do that.
Well, you're very confident about the Navy game. I think it could be difficult for Army if they had to play Air Force the week before. But I think Coach Munkin and the team would be up for that challenge. Richard Miller, tell us about some of the games last week. Certainly the big win, Notre Dame over Clemson, was a thrilling college football game.
Okay, the scores from last week. Number 22, Texas is 5-2, a 17-13 victory over West Virginia. West Virginia now goes to 4-3. Number 25, Liberty, 38-35 over Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is 4-3. Number 25, Liberty is now 7-0. Number 18, SMU, a 27-17 victory over Temple. Temple goes to 1-4 on the season, while SMU improves to 7-1 on the season. Number 23, Michigan, and number 13, Indiana. Indiana goes to 3-0, a 38-21 victory over the Wolverines, who now fall to 1-2 on the season. Number 20, USC, a close victory, 28-27 over Arizona State. USC is 1-0. Arizona State is 0-1 on the season. Massachusetts and number 16, Marshall. Marshall, a 51-10 victory. They prove Marshall, number 16 in the country, goes to 16-0, while Massachusetts goes to 0-2. Number 6, Cincinnati is now 6-0 with a 38-10 victory over Houston, who goes to 2-3. The world's largest cocktail party. See, I can't. According to the paper, I can't get the score. I can't get the score on my paper from that game.
Okay, we'll come back to that one.
Yeah. Also, some other games from number 19, Oklahoma, a 62-9 victory over Kansas. Oklahoma is now 5-2. Kansas is 0-7. Oklahoma State 20-18 over Kansas State. Now, Kansas State is now 4-3. Oklahoma State is now 5-1 on the season. Number 17, Iowa State beating and Baylor. Iowa State defeated Baylor in that game. Iowa State is now 5-2, while Baylor is 4-1 on the season. Number 7, Texas A&M 48-3 over South Carolina. Texas A&M is 5-1, while South Carolina is 2-4. 35-14 victory for the Oregon Ducks, number 12 in the country, their first win of the season, while Stanford suffers their first loss on the season. Number 3, Ohio State beats Rutgers. Ohio State is now 3-0 on the season. Rutgers is 1-2. Also, as well, that thrilling double overtime game we were all in on. Number 4, Notre Dame, 47-40 over number 1 Clemson without Trevor Lawrence, who had tested positive for COVID-19. Notre Dame is now 7-0 on the season, while Clemson is 7-1. Coastal Carolina, number 15, 23-6 over South Alabama, who is now 4-3 on the season. Coastal Carolina, number 15, is now 7-0. Purdue and Wisconsin will postpone. Purdue is 2-0. Wisconsin, number 10, is 1-0. Miami, 6-1 now with a 44-41 victory over NC State, which is now 4-3. Number 9, BYU, 8-0, 51-17 over Boise State, which is now 2-1 on the season. And
good.
Games, yeah.
Oh, we'll get back to games tomorrow. Later in the show, Jack McGuirk. We know Air Force didn't play last week.
Not playing either.
Sam's got the message for the Air Force Academy. Did Navy have a game last week?
No, they didn't. Their last game, of course, at 51.
Right.
37 lost to SMU. So
right. Their game versus Tulsa was canceled, and there was conjecture among us that Tulsa might be diverted to come up to West Point to play a game on national television, but that didn't happen. It's funny, if the cancellation, Sam, had happened maybe Tuesday instead of Thursday, it might have happened. it might have been interesting. But I think the fact that it happened at 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoon really negated any chance of rescheduling.
What I will say is it once again revealed to all of us what a brawler Coach Monken is, because his reaction to that late notice and some of the things that he said were just really motivating for all of the Long Gray Line faithful. He once again demonstrated that he's ready to play anybody, anytime, anywhere, even if it's in the parking lot of the high school. So if Tulsa had been willing, Army would have been able to host that game and play.
That would have been a good game too. You know, one of the things to keep in mind is I had a chat with the chairman of the Independence Bowl, Frank Hauer, this week, and it's posted on our page, West Point Football Report. And one of the things he pointed out is the Army's opponent is from the Pac-12, a Power 5 conference. And in normal years, their opponent that's seeded into this game is the number 7 finisher of the Pac-12. But because 2 other bowl games have been canceled, they are moved up to accept the number 5 position opponent from the finisher from the Pac-12. So Army could be seeing quite a good team in the Independence Bowl, Sam. I mean, we might be seeing something. I kind of hope it's UCLA or USC. That would be kind of neat.
That would be nice. It would be really a sight to see. I wonder, I'd have to go read my Army history and find out if they've ever even played each other. But playing a Power 5 conference in a bowl game is not something that Army's unfamiliar with. Back in the 80s, they played Michigan State and Illinois and beat them in back-to-back bowl games. And then, of course, they played Alabama in the Sun Bowl one year, and it was a thriller of a game that Army was one each Derek Thomas field goal blocks away from beating down in the Sun Bowl. And they played Auburn in the last time they were in the Independence Bowl, which was also another thriller. So it would be very nice to see Army lock horns with another Power 5 conference team in a bowl game.
Well, it looks like they will. Just a question of who. And the Pac-12's got some very good teams. Arizona State, Colorado, even is a possibility. Washington, Oregon. So it'll be interesting. And but Army's got 4 big games before that. And let's go to the task at hand, which is playing down at Tulane on Saturday. And Tulane is 4-4 on the season. They are playing a freshman quarterback who's looked good so far this year. They have a balanced offense, and they've got a very aggressive defense. Everybody's pointing out to the number of sacks that they have on their team. And especially their defensive end has 9 sacks. Patrick Johnson, number 7. We'll be looking for him. He's got 11.5 tackles for loss, 28 on the season. So they are an aggressive defense, a mixed offense. But it's just sort of this difference. They played every week for 5 weeks. Army's been off for 2 Saturdays in a row. How do you see that happening, Sam? I think Army could be very fresh, especially with their offensive line. They're going to have Anthony Atkins is going to be back, according to Coach Monken when I asked him on Tuesday. And healthy quarterbacks. So what you're thinking about the game so far?
Having everybody healed up is always a good thing, to be able to go into the game and know that you don't have any nagging injuries in key positions, and you've got depth in every position. The flip side of the coin, though, is that 2 straight weeks off can disrupt your momentum and the continuity that you have flowing from one game to the next. And Tulane certainly should have that, having played for several weeks in a row. So Army has to be real careful about making mental mistakes early in this game. As you recall, last season, Tulane was the game that really did expose some glaring weaknesses in Army's defense on the perimeter speed. And Tulane took advantage of that with short passing and a lot of sweeps, power sweep runs that were catching the Army defense out of position or getting more hats, blocking hats on the defenders around the edges and springing long gainers. And Tulane in the process ran up the score pretty quickly on Army. Now, Army did courageously battle their way back into the game and were still within a couple of scores of being able to win the game in the fourth quarter. But the game itself, for 3 quarters, it never looked like it was in question because of the preparedness that Coach Fritz had his team ready for when they rolled into Michie Stadium. And by the way, that also broke a long home winning streak for Army when Tulane came to town. Now, to talk about freshman quarterbacks in Tulane, let's always keep in mind that in 2017, the Ahmad Bradshaw-led Army team rolled into Ullman Stadium down there in New Orleans, and I went to the game. And Tulane got the ball with a freshman quarterback and about 80 yards to go late in the fourth quarter, down by 1 score. And that freshman quarterback led a 80-yard drive where they converted 2 4th and long situations and another 4th and short inside the 10-yard line to end up scoring with maybe about 30 seconds to go in the game, and brought the Army team down. And it was a crushing loss. And I know that Coach Monken used it as a building block moving forward in the 2017 season. But the fact is some people have been asking, why is Tulane favored in this game? My response is that Tulane has gotten the better of Army the past few times they played. And Coach Fritz knows how to play option. He knows how to defend option football, and he's done very well against Coach Monken coached Army football teams, especially in the last 2 times they faced one another. So certainly the uphill battle is for Army, and the team with something to prove is Army, and that is they need to prove that they can get over the Tulane, the green wave hump, that they can surf right over that, right on into the shore for a victory.
Yeah, so, I will say about the game in 2017, it was the week after the Ohio State game, and I thought Army had taken a number of injuries in that game, and kind of a beating. I mean, when you play a team like Ohio State, I didn't think Army was at their best that day against Tulane. And, but, that's the way college football works. Most of the times you play week after week, and you got to have depth, and you got to be ready to play each and every Saturday. Now, the quarterback for the freshman for Tulane, Michael Pratt, 80 for 180 completions out of 152, 4 interceptions for 1,111 yards, 12 touchdown passes, longest 52, and he's averaging 185 yards a game passing, which is impressive. Now, I'm going to go back to the other side of the ledger, which is Army's quarterback situation. And looking at the depth chart at quarterback, it's Cade Ballard, Christian Anderson, and Tyree Tyler on the list. And it's good to see Christian Anderson's name back on the list. He was hurt in the Abilene Christian game. I thought he got sandwiched by 3 players. And so Coach Monken hasn't talked a lot about his availability other than he's been practicing. But it's good to see that he's on the list. Cade Ballard has been getting a lot of accolades from Coach Monken for his experience, his poise in the huddle. Ballard, a player that was 30-0 in high school, won 2 state championships in Tennessee. And Coach Monken seems very comfortable with him so far. But we know Tyree Tyler is a terrific runner. And I'm wondering if Jamel Jones might be ready to play too. He was hurt in October on a play where he had to make a tackle after the screen pass interception, and he's been out. But what do you think, Sam? That seems to be the critical spot for Army, the quarterback spot.
I expect you're going to see the Cade Ballard Tyler combination again tomorrow. If Christian Anderson is truly healthy, you'll see him. We'll find out if he is or not based on whether or not he plays, because I believe that's what kind of confidence Coach Monken has in Cade Ballard and Tyler to take the load of the game while Christian Anderson continues to heal from his injury. So I would like to see Anderson play. I would like to see to what extent he has recovered and to what ability he has to continue to run the football and run the offense. But the past few games have most certainly demonstrated how confident Coach Monken is in Cade Ballard and Tyler to carry the load of the offense and share that load almost equally, and expect the same type of results of scoring points and moving the ball and taking time off the clock, which is what that offense is engineered to do. Cade Ballard himself, he certainly looks like the future for the Army team at the QB position, but time will tell as we proceed through the season. But so far, he's definitely looked like he's looked way more mature than what his time playing college football would suggest. So we'll look forward to seeing how the quarterback play tomorrow, which of course in the triple option football is critical. And mistakes early on, coupled with Tulane's explosiveness on offense, could spell getting in a hole early, which Army certainly does not want to do. Neither does Army want to have 3 and outs to begin the game because, again, Tulane really does and has shown the potential to put a team in a hole. Sans a monumental collapse like what they did in the second half against Navy, they really can put some serious points on the board. So Army's offense has got to run well. Cade Ballard, Tyler, Christian Anderson, whoever's running the triple option, they have got to play flawless, and they have got to keep their the team focused on the task at hand and the purpose of each play and the design of each play to ensure that they are achieving the best possible success and outcome on every play that they run.
Very good. Now, Jack McGuirk, what's your thought on the game? What are you going to look for in Army at Tulane tomorrow?
Well, as Sam was saying, Tulane is favored in the game. I looked it up. They're actually favored by 3.5 points. If you look at their overall record between these two schools, they've had 22 games against each other with 12 wins for Tulane, 9 for Army, and a tie. So, again, slight advantage with Tulane. But then when you look at their schedule, Tulane's schedule this year so far, they had a win over, kind of a blowout win over Temple, 38-3 win over Temple. Now, Temple earlier in the season also lost to Navy, but that was a much closer game, a 31-29 win for Navy. And then I go back to the Tulane-Navy game, which, of course, Navy has a triple option offense. And the interesting thing is in that game at one point, Tulane was leading 24-0. And then Navy came back to win the game 27-24. So I guess Navy made the right adjustments and came back with a huge comeback for the win. We'll have to see if Army can make those same adjustments. The other thing is whether or not having all that time off is an advantage or disadvantage for Army. Their last game was 3 weeks ago. And Tulane hasn't skipped a beat. They've had game, every weekend so far. So we'll have to see, how that is going to contribute to the game.
Yeah, I kind of think Army's going to benefit because the young quarterbacks would have been able to get a lot of reps in practice the past couple of weeks. Coach Monken told me that the plan for the Air Force game was to play Cade Ballard and Tyler in that order, and Coach was very confident in, especially in what he's commented about Cade Ballard, and Tyler's played well. So that would have been interesting. So I think that we'll see that combination tomorrow. I think the offensive line for Army, made up of seniors, senior dominated, benefited from the extra time off. I think that's the only problem with repetitions. I think the coach would have been trying to minimize contact for the offensive linemen who take a pounding during the games and through the year. Connor Bishop is listed to be back as the starting center. Mike Johnson, left guard, Lucas McCleary, left tackle, Peyton Reeder, right guard, and J.B. Hunter at right tackle. And and also I see Isaiah Alston is back on the roster for the 2-deep chart at wide receiver. Alston had a couple of big plays in the opening week, but then he was hurt. And, defense has been pretty solid, mostly healthy. Amadeo West there at defensive end. Nose guard Nolan Cockrell's has played very well. And Jeremiah Lowry's back on the depth chart. So we'll see. Spencer Jones, who is moved up, the freshman who had a very good showing against Mercer with 7 tackles. One thing I do see is that they have Dean Powell at center as a third center. So that may be something that they're looking at as an option as well, that position. So I think it's going to be an interesting test for Army. I mean, it's really one of the best teams they've played since the Cincinnati game. And how much of a difference do you think it is for Tulane having played 5 weeks in a row and now playing Army versus Army being fresh? Is that kind of a significant advantage for Army, do you think, Sam?
No, I don't think it is. Again, as we were talking about a little earlier, the real, football is a game of momentum and continuity and repetition. And if you get out of the habit of playing every week, you lose that continuity. And that can make you prone to make little mistakes like false start penalties or not properly blocking, even the basics like hitting and tackling. They have to stay fresh. And in today's rules of practice and the things that colleges and even high schools do to mitigate injuries in their game preparation, they don't completely simulate the environment that they experience in a game. And so a great example of what I mean is when you look at how Navy started the season, when Coach Nimatalolo had made the decision to not do contact drills in his preparation for the season, and they looked like it when they hit the field. I'm not saying that Army's going to look like that tomorrow, but it is a fear of mine that having gone, it will have been 3 weeks since the last time they suited up and played a football game, that they can come out with a little bit of jitters and a little bit of mental attitude that needs some adjustments early on. And so the hope is that they're not leading to little mistakes, or they can lead to big mistakes that allow Tulane to put a few points on the board. The flip side of that is Tulane does not come into the game fresh. Obviously, they played every week, so they've got their injuries. They've got players who are sore, nicked, banged up, but they have the benefit of not having taken a week off. So that repetition is fresh in their heads, fresh in their minds, fresh in their legs and arms, and most importantly, in those 6 inches between their ears. So we'll see how they line up and play. But really, I just do not see where the time off faced with having played week in, week out is that much of an advantage for either team, especially when you're talking about the kind of athletes that Coach Fritz is able to bring to Tulane, because he does have some really good athletes on his team.
Coach Fritz, of course, knows Coach Monken very well. They both coach at Georgia Southern. Coach Fritz was the head coach after Jeff Monken left to come up to West Point. Jack, what has Navy got this week? I know Air Force's game at Wyoming was canceled due to COVID.
Right, and Navy has a game, not this weekend, but following weekend at South Florida.
Okay.
Yeah. Navy was actually supposed to play, I believe, Memphis this weekend, and the game was either canceled or suspended because of COVID.
Yep.
Well, it shows you the impact of COVID on the college football season. A number of games in the Southeast Conference have been canceled for this week. The Pac-12 just getting their second weekend. So,
and Arizona game canceled over in the Pac-12.
Which one?
Arizona State, because some players on their team, and also their coach Herm Edwards tested positive. So,
yeah, Coach Munkin was on Mark Packard's national radio show this week, and Mark asked him about, Coach, do you think we can get the season finished? And Coach Munkin was very definitive in saying, yes, we can, by taking proper management of COVID-19 discipline amongst the teams. But it's going to be something when it comes down to the bowl games and the college football playoff, where you've got 4 teams playing, and you can't postpone the game very easily, than more than a day or two. And whether you're going to have substitute teams available to play a 5th team or 6th team ready to jump in to that game should one of the teams have to pull out because of COVID. So we'll see what happens, but that's got to really worry the administrators for all the bowl games, because you can't find another opponent. You can't really change the date. You can't do it 2 weeks later. So it's going to be challenging, and especially with the financial commitments. We talked to the gentleman who runs the Independence Bowl, and you can see how much work the planning committee does. And he said to me, this is the biggest one-day financial economic benefit for that part of Northwest Louisiana. And so it's something that's going to be a real challenge for the teams. Richard, tell us what other games are coming up this weekend that you're going to watch.
Some other games that I'm going to come up and watching this weekend are, let's see, Arkansas number 6. Arkansas taking on Florida number 6. Florida's 4-1. Arkansas is 3-3. I am going to watch the USC number 20 USC taking on Arizona. That's a 3 o'clock game. I am going to also watch number 11 Oregon taking on Washington State, as well as also Miami and Virginia Tech number 9 Miami 6-1. Virginia Tech is 4-3. East Carolina is taking on Cincinnati. That's tonight at 7:30. Cincinnati's number 7. They are 6-0 on the season. Marshall number 20. Marshall is 6-0, taking on Middle Tennessee, which is 25 on the season. That's a high noon start. Number 10, Indiana is 3-0. Michigan State is 1-2. Notre Dame 7-0. They're ranked number 2 in the country. They're taking on Boston College, which is now 5-3 on the season.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Sam, what's your thought on the national scene? Certainly a huge win for Notre Dame. Ohio State's in the picture. Many believe Clemson will be back in the college football playoff. What you're thinking about what's happening on the national scene?
First, I just want to say congratulations to Richard, because last week we both made our own predictions about the Notre Dame Clemson game, and Richard he picked Notre Dame and I picked Clemson. And when Clemson scored their last touchdown in regulation, I thought, all right, we've got it now. And Notre Dame really rose to the occasion, both in the last few minutes of the game as well as in overtime. So good pick there, Richard. Notre Dame earned it for sure, and definitely one of the most entertaining games I've watched this season.
Sure. Yeah, I saw the second half, and I was contested to the last moment.
But as far as the national picture is concerned, Notre Dame definitely thrust themselves into the legitimacy of being in the top 5 with that game. Clemson, I believe that they're still a top 5 team in spite of the loss, and they're going to make some noise as the season goes on. I expect Notre Dame and Clemson are probably going to see each other again in the ACC championship game. Alabama, of course, always in the mix. But the team that I'm most interested in on the national stage is Cincinnati. And that's because Cincinnati is the team that shares a common opponent on their schedule, and that is they played the Army team. And it bodes well for Army, the better Cincinnati does for the remainder of their season. that places legitimacy on the fact that Army really did play Cincinnati well. And Army really did have an opportunity to win that game. If you take away a few mistakes that were made on offense and one blown coverage late in the game, you were really just looking at a 10-7 game at halftime and a 17-10 game in the middle of the fourth quarter. And that's the only game this season where Cincinnati has had a run for the money. So I would love to see Cincinnati in the talk of BCS playoff come the conclusion of the season and have that opportunity. I'm not saying that they would beat Alabama. I'm not saying they would beat Notre Dame. But I would say this, based on what I've seen from Cincinnati, they would definitely deliver a very good product on the football field. So we'll see how that goes. The COVID-19 situation is really having a big impact on the ability to generate the type of credibility for teams that are wanting to be in the mix, and then they have games canceled, and now we never know if they're going to be rescheduled. You know, with that in mind, I've seen a lot of questions keep coming up on the Army forum, and I'm also curious myself, and that is, whatever happened to the BYU game? Is it going to get rescheduled or not? Why was it said that it was, why was it initially told to everyone, announced to everyone that it was suspended and would be rescheduled? But as we get further into the season, we start to wonder, was that really the intent, or was the game canceled? So we don't know. And now we're having the same kind of conversation about Air Force. So now, of the two, if you were to say we can only reschedule one of those games, and definitely I'm sure Army faithful like myself would say, yeah, we've got to reschedule the Air Force game. But heck, we certainly would like to have a crack at BYU. And so I would love to see that game get back on the schedule, but I never see any talk about it. I was just curious if you've heard anything in that regard.
No, there hasn't been any dialogue from what I've heard from Army officials about BYU.
And that's, I doubt very seriously that's because of Army. I have a feeling that that would be coming from BYU, that they're not interested in having the game. Or,
well, it's the travel. There's not a lot of dates left. The question is, what can you do before the bowl games?
Well, I know that both teams had an opening on Thanksgiving weekend, and that was what was suggested, but way back when the game first canceled. And I know that originally Army was supposed to play UMass that weekend, and now UMass has a season. And so there was discussion about Army playing UMass again and putting them right back on their schedule where they originally were, but never have heard anything else about that either.
Yeah, it would have been nice because, one of the facts is that the Corps of Cadets is going to be not going home for Thanksgiving this year. They're going to stay at West Point. So actually a football game, if they could have scheduled it at West Point, would have been a nice event for the cadets to look forward to during that period. Maybe, as they're maintaining the bubble at West Point through the whole season and through the exams, which will break in the middle of December. I guess the Navy game will be about the last day the cadets will be there. And it'll be kind of a neat thing to look forward to. Jack, what's your thought this weekend? Any particular games you're going to watch?
Well, Notre Dame is a team to keep an eye on. That heck of a game, that Notre Dame-Clemson game. Although, at the end there was that huge crowd rushing the field, which normally looks really fun and exciting, but in the time of COVID, that looks kind of scary. And you hope no one, there's no outbreak or anything as a result of that. But also, I was going to, Sam mentioned BYU. That's a team to keep an eye on. They have an 8-0 record right now, one of the best records in all of football. They're nationally ranked number 8, right behind Cincinnati. So, yeah, you wonder what would have happened with that Army BYU game. And you mentioned Thanksgiving weekend. It's interesting. Air Force actually has a game on Thanksgiving Day in the afternoon. It's a home game against Colorado State. Although their next game is this coming Friday against New Mexico, also a home game. So back-to-back home games coming up for them. But yeah, it should be a fun weekend. Keep it on BYU, and we'll have to wait on Navy and Air Force.
I think it's going to be tough this year, Jack, with two programs that are doing very well outside the Power Five in BYU and Cincinnati.
Yeah.
If you could squeeze one of them into the college football playoff, which is only 4 teams, I think Cincinnati would get the nod, but the folks at BYU would be really upset if they're 8-0 and don't get into the playoff, and which will raise an argument for expanding that to 8 teams, which is frequently conducted as a discussion. Sam, one more question I got to ask you is, how does Army play multiple quarterbacks without risking coordination issues with the center? We've had Cade Ballard play the first series and the first play of drives, and then Tyree Tyler's gone in. And somehow they've been able to make it work. But the level of competition is going to go up. It's going to be very much like the Texas-San Antonio game, if not even harder. How does Coach Monken make it work and maybe even squeeze Christian Anderson into the game?
It's a great question, and you got to hand it to Coach Monken and his staff for being able to do this as seamlessly as he seems to be able to do it. One of the deceptive things about the triple option that the Army runs is that it seems, when you watch it, it seems to be a very simplistic offense compared to some of the other offenses you see college football run. It's not really as simple as it looks. However, it is comprised of a lot of repetitiveness, and the more reps that each of those quarterbacks get in practice time, they get rotated out with all of the centers on the depth chart. So they get equal reps with every center. They get equal reps with every offensive line unit. They get equal reps with all of the backs. So when they go in, when, say, Cade Ballard starts a game and Tyree Tyler goes in for the next set of offensive plays, it isn't as though Tyree Tyler was taking snaps all week from Noah Knapp and not Connor Bishop, or running with the third offensive line unit and not the first offensive line unit or the first string backs. They all have their reps in, so they're very familiar with each other. But, and this is where I'm going to sound like I contradict myself a little bit, there is a simplicity to the triple option in that the reads that the quarterback has to make are not as many as, say, a quarterback would need to make in a run pass option type offense that you see a lot of colleges run. On those type of offenses, the reads that the quarterback has to make are much deeper than just the line of scrimmage and the first level where the linebackers are. In triple option ball, the quarterback is making reads along the line of scrimmage, the defensive end, the nose tackle, the linebackers. Those are going to be the reads for the handoffs or the keeps or the pitches. Whereas in read pass option, the quarterback is watching the line of scrimmage, watching the linebackers, watching the defensive backs in coverage, and making that decision whether to hand the ball off, keep the ball and run, or throw the ball. So it would be much harder for Monken to be able to have that type of seamless play from quarterbacks if he was running a more RPO or pro set style offense. But with the triple option ball, the repetitive nature of the type of plays allows you to hone it down to teaching your quarterbacks the proper reads that they need to make, again, along the line of scrimmage and along that second layer where the linebackers and defensive ends are going to be roaming. So, and again, they've been doing a great job, because normally you don't see this kind of platoon effort of quarterback. In the past years, we've had Ahmad Bradshaw, we've had Kelvin Hopkins. And then last year, if I was to take a guess why we're seeing it so much this year, I think last year was the reason, and that is Kelvin Hopkins got hurt, Jabari Laws got hurt, Christian Anderson got hurt, and Coach Monken had to be in position where if he had a fifth string quarterback, he needed to be just as ready as the first string quarterback. So I think that he approached this season with that exact same attitude, which is my fifth string quarterback has got to be just as ready as my first string quarterback this season. And he's proven that is the case.
And doing that without spring practice, where you can oftentimes give younger players a chance to get more reps and more time in the spring game, for example. Okay, let's go around the table and take a score on Army at Tulane tomorrow. And Richard Miller, what do you see the score as? Who's going to win between Army and Tulane?
I think I see Tulane winning. I think it's going to be Tulane by I think 2 touchdowns. I think 24-14.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping Richard's not right 2 weeks in a row. But Sam, what do you see happening tomorrow?
It's going to be a good game. And I have a little bit of heartburn over this game because, as you know, originally we were going to the Big Easy to watch the game. I stayed on the ticket office weekly about tickets, checked with the Tulane, and finally came to the conclusion that there were no tickets available because no fans in the stands. The West Point Society wasn't going to have a gathering because of COVID-19 restrictions. And then my hotel called me and said they were closed due to lack of occupancy. So it was a perfect storm that ran against me actually going down to the Big Easy to watch this game. And then to add insult to injury, I just wanted to add that yesterday I finally succumbed to the temptation, and I subscribed to ESPN Plus for 1 month just to watch the game. And then today they announced that ESPN2 was going to carry it, so I didn't even need to subscribe to ESPN Plus. So I'll be watching it with the West Point Society here in Huntsville at our local watering hole to cheer Army on to victory. And that being said, Army is going to win this game. They're gonna get off the schneid where Tulane and the Green Wave are concerned from the past 2 times they've met. To stay consistent with my prediction on the Army Forum that I contribute to from time to time, Army is going to win. They're going to win 35-24. They're going to be the beneficiaries of a couple of Tulane turnovers, and that's going to allow Army to put the game away. It's going to stay close until this happens. That's probably going to happen in the second half. And then Army's going to put it away in the fourth quarter, and all the Army faithful can breathe a big sigh of relief. And if you're not in New Orleans, which I was going to be, but I'm not, you can pretend like you're partying down in the French Quarter.
Okay. Jack McGuirk, what do you think is going to happen, Army at Tulane?
Well, even though Tulane is favored by 3.5 points, I'm going to give this one to Army. I'm going to say 27-21. I think I'll figure out a way to Tulane, just like Navy did with their triple option offense. And Army's defense has been so great this year. The most points they've allowed in the game this year was 24 points, and that was against Cincinnati. So I think Army is going to come away with a win. And they're also playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because they were not happy about the Air Force game getting canceled. In fact, Coach Monken, I believe his exact words were that he was ticked off about it. So
he had a few things to say.
Yeah. Give Army the win in this one, 27-21.
Okay, well, I'm going to say that I think Army's going to come out fresh. I think fresh legs makes a difference. I think their offensive line is going to be healed up and blocking on all cylinders. I think they have the fullbacks ready to go, Jacoby Buchanan and Santa McCoy. And then also the addition of Anthony Atkins this week. I haven't talked too much about the defense, but I think Nate Woody's got them playing on all cylinders this year. I think they're going to keep the score down. They're going to be the answer to Tulane's option-oriented offense or balanced offense. So I think this game's going to be 24-17 in favor of Army. I think it might even be 24-10. I think the defense for Army is not getting the attention it deserves for the quality of play that they are providing. I think Army's going to micromanage the quarterback situation, try to do it the way they've done it the last 2 games with Cade Ballard starting, Tyree Tyler coming off the bench. And we might see Christian Anderson for a series or two, depending on how the game is going. But if Coach Monken sees that Cade Ballard and Tyler are effectively running the offense, he's just going to stick with it as long as it takes to pull this game out. So,
well, Ken,
go ahead.
One thing I did mean to say, in addition to as far as predictions where Tulane is concerned, one thing I did want to mention. You asked me a couple of times about the advantage of having time off versus playing every week. There is one thing that I do expect to see tomorrow in my prediction for the game. Army's had 2 weeks of practices. Tulane has not had as much time, although they were, prepared for Navy. They did have that time they prepared for Navy. What I do expect, in addition, is I expect Army's offense to show some sets to Tulane that they did not prepare for and they weren't expecting. I expect you're going to probably see a couple of option runs out of the shotgun formation. I think you're going to see a lot more of the A-backs going off tackle and a few more misdirection and trap-type plays that Tulane has not necessarily seen before because Army hasn't run them yet this season. And the reason is because they've had time to prepare for it.
Good point. Good point. I think you give coaches extra time and they'll use it to their advantage, to coming up with new ways to confuse the opposition. Okay, let's wrap up. I want to thank our huddle tonight. We have Richard Miller calling in from Florida. Thank you, Richard. We've got Sam Houston from the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama, which is being emblazoned with Beat Air Force. And hopefully there'll be an opportunity to do that very shortly. And Jack McGuirk calling in from Pelham from our Monday WVOX 2:30 show. We'll be back on again this week. And I just want to thank our sponsors, especially the Westchester Bank, helping us out, Patty Devines helping us with technology, and the White Plains Bake Shop, Lee Kaufman and his group getting set for Thanksgiving. And I always want to recognize, especially it's been Veterans Day. We talked to Coach Monken, had a very eloquent, thoughtful comment for us about Veterans Day and the service of veterans from the Academy and the U.S. Army and in the military. Thank you for your service to all veterans and especially the 2 million veterans who are members of the American Legion. So again, for our team, this is Ken Kraetzer for Sons of the American Legion Radio. We'll have coverage on our page, West Point Football Report tomorrow. We'll have the post game with Coach Monken, and then we'll look forward to being back here next weekend at Mikey Stadium as Army will close out its regular season games at West Point against Georgia Southern. So for our team, this is Ken Kraetzer for Sons of the American Legion Radio from my home office here in White Plains, New York. Have a great day, everybody.